The distress signal came through at 3 in the morning, ship time. Commander Nathan Cole was already awake, staring at the stars through the observation window of his cabin. He had not been able to sleep. Something felt wrong in the darkness between the stars, though he could not explain what. When the alarm sounded, he was on the bridge in less than 2 minutes. "What do we have?" he asked, sliding into the command chair. Lisa Marsh, his second-in-command, pulled up the signal on the main screen. Her face was pale in the blue light. "Distress beacon, sir. Coming from the edge of the Volantis system. The signal is Styrian." The bridge went quiet. Every crew member knew that name. The Thyrian Empire controlled over 300 worlds. Their warriors were legendary. Their ships were the finest in the known galaxy, and they did not send distress signals. Ever. "How far?" Nathan asked. 4 hours at maximum speed. Nathan looked at the signal pulsing on the screen, red and urgent. Desperate. "Change course," he said. "Take us there." Danny Ortiz, the chief engineer, looked up from his station. "Sir, the Thyrians don't exactly like humans. If we show up uninvited, they might shoot first and ask questions never." "Someone is dying out there, Danny. We're going." The crew of the Starward Hope did not argue. They had served with Nathan Cole for 3 years. They trusted him with their lives. And besides, humans did not leave people to die in the void. It was not in their nature. 4 hours later, they found the Thyrian cruiser. It was a beautiful ship, or it had been once. Now it drifted through space like a wounded animal, trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. Great holes had been torn through its hull. The metal looked melted in places, twisted in ways that made no physical sense. "Life signs?" Nathan asked. Claire Abbott, the medical officer, checked her readings twice before answering. 17, maybe 18, it's hard to tell. They're faint. "Prepare a boarding team. Lisa, you're with me. Danny, keep the engines hot. If something comes for us, I want to be able to run." Danny nodded grimly. "And if we can't run?" Nathan did not answer. He was already walking toward the airlock. The inside of the Thyrian cruiser was worse than the outside. Bodies lay in the corridors, frozen in death. Thyrian warriors, the finest soldiers in the galaxy, cut down like they were nothing. Some of them had weapons in their hands. Others had been running. None of them had survived. Nathan stepped over a fallen soldier and tried not to look at the expression frozen on his face. It was not pain. It was not anger. It was pure, absolute terror. "What could do this?" Lisa whispered. Nathan shook his head. He had no answer. They found the survivors in the medical bay. 18 Thyrians huddled together, their weapons pointed at the door. When Nathan and Lisa entered, a dozen energy rifles aimed at their chests. "Humans," one of the Thyrians spat. He was wounded, blue blood seeping through a bandage on his shoulder. "You should not have come here. Leave while you still can." "We received your distress signal," Nathan said calmly. "We're here to help." A cold laugh came from the corner of the room. Nathan turned and saw her for the first time. She was young by Thyrian standards, perhaps the equivalent of 25 human years. Her skin was the color of pale silver, her hair dark as the void itself. Her eyes were violet, bright with pain and pride, and contempt. Even wounded, even surrounded by death, she held herself like royalty, because she was royalty. "Princess Kalith Voran," Lisa murmured, recognizing the royal markings on the woman's armor. The princess pushed herself to her feet. She was taller than Nathan by nearly a foot, looking down at him like he was an insect that had crawled into her presence. "So the soft creatures have come to play hero," she said. Her voice dripped with disdain. How touching, how utterly pointless. "Your ship is destroyed," Nathan replied, keeping his voice steady. "Half your crew is dead. Whatever did this might still be out there. You can insult us later. Right now, let us help you." Kalith's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Nathan thought she might order her soldiers to shoot him anyway. Then, something flickered across her face. Something that looked almost like fear. "You do not understand what hunted us," she said quietly. "Your weapons cannot stop them. Your ship cannot outrun them. They are coming, human. They are always coming." "Who?" "The Varaxis." The word meant nothing to Nathan, but he saw the reaction in the Therian soldiers. Hardened warriors who had faced death on 100 battlefields. They trembled at the name. "We can discuss this on my ship," Nathan said. "Can your people walk?" Caliph studied him for a long moment. He did not look away. He did not flinch. He simply waited, calm and patient, like a man who had all the time in the universe. "You will die," she said finally. "All of you. The Varaxis do not leave survivors." "Maybe," Nathan agreed, "but I'm not going to leave you here to die alone. So you can come with us, or you can stay here and wait for them. Your choice, princess." The princess stared at him. No one spoke to Therian royalty this way. No one dared. But there was something in this human's eyes, something she could not quite identify. It was not courage, exactly. It was not defiance. It was something deeper, something older. For a moment, just a moment, Princess Caliph Voron felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Very well," she said at last. "We will come with you. But understand this, human. When the Varaxis arrive, you will see what true monsters look like. And you will understand why even the Therian Empire fears the dark." Nathan simply nodded. "Let's move." As they made their way back to the Starward Hope, Caliph watched the human commander. He moved efficiently, helping the wounded, giving orders in a quiet voice. His crew obeyed without hesitation. There was no fear in them, no panic. Pathetic creatures, she thought. They have no idea what is coming for them. She was right about one thing. Something was coming. But she was very, very wrong about everything else. The medical bay of the Starward Hope was small but well equipped. Claire Abbott worked quickly, treating the wounded Therians with the same care she would give her own crew. The aliens watched her with confusion. They had expected humans to be cruel, or at least indifferent. This kindness made no sense to them. Princess Caliph sat on one of the medical beds, her arm wrapped in fresh bandages. She had refused any pain medication. Pain kept the mind sharp, she said, and she would need a sharp mind for what was coming. Nathan entered the medical bay and pulled up a chair across from her. He did not sit too close. He did not invade her space. He simply waited. "You wish to know about the Varaxis," Caliph said. It was not a question. "I need to know what we're dealing with." The princess laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What you are dealing with, human, is extinction. The Varaxis are not creatures in the way you understand. They do not live in this dimension. They exist between spaces, in the gaps between reality. They are old, older than the stars themselves." "What do they want?" "They feed," Caliph said simply. "Not on flesh, not on energy. They feed on fear, on suffering, on the psychic screams of dying civilizations. They have ended hundreds of species across the millennia. Entire worlds wiped clean of life just to satisfy their hunger." Nathan absorbed this information without expression. "Why did they attack your ship?" "Because of me. I am the third daughter of the Therian Emperor. My death would send a message to my father, a message that even the mighty Therian Empire is nothing but prey to the Varaxis. How many are hunting you?" "At least 40, perhaps more." Her voice wavered slightly. "They will find us. They always do. And when they come, your weapons will be useless. Your ship will be their playground. I tell you this, not to frighten you, human, but so you understand the truth of your situation." She leaned forward, her violet eyes boring into his. "You will not survive this. None of us will." Nathan held her gaze for a long moment. Then He stood up. "Lisa," he said into his communicator, "meet me in Cargo Bay 7, and bring Danny." He walked out without another word. Kaylet stared after him, confused by his reaction. She had just told him they were all going to die, and he had responded like she had told him about a minor ship malfunction. These humans were strange creatures indeed. In Cargo Bay 7, Nathan stood before a door marked with hazard symbols. Warning signs in 17 different languages covered every surface. Lisa and Danny arrived together, both of them looking uncomfortable. "Sir," Lisa said carefully, "are you sure about this?" "But I don't see another option." Danny shifted his weight nervously. "The protocols exist for a reason, Commander. He's been asleep for 80 years. Waking him up early could have consequences we can't predict." "The Varaxis will have consequences we can't survive," Nathan replied. "Open the door, Danny." The engineer hesitated. Then he entered his access code. The door slid open with a hiss of cold air. Inside was a single cryogenic pod, larger than the standard models. It was covered in frost, the glass obscured by ice crystals. But through the frost, they could see a figure inside. A man, sleeping peacefully, as if he had not a care in the universe. "Wake him up," Nathan ordered. Danny's hands trembled as he worked the controls. The pod began to hum. Vital signs appeared on the monitors, rising from nothing to normal in the span of seconds. The lid opened. The man inside sat up slowly, blinking in the harsh light. He looked ordinary, completely, utterly ordinary. Brown hair, gray eyes, average build. He appeared to be in his early 30s, though his record said otherwise. He was wearing simple gray clothes, nothing special about them. He looked around the cargo bay, taking in his surroundings, with mild curiosity. Then he saw Nathan. "Commander Cole," he said. His voice was soft, pleasant. "I assume something has gone wrong. We have a situation. Varaxis. At least 40 of them. Hunting a Thyrian princess we picked up from a wrecked ship." The man considered this. "Varaxis. I have not encountered them before, but I know of them." He stepped out of the pod, stretching like he had simply woken from a nap. "How long until they arrive?" "We don't know. Maybe less." The man smiled gently. "Then I should probably introduce myself to our guests. It would be rude to help them without a proper introduction." He walked toward the door, then paused. "My name is Evan, by the way. Just Evan. I find it's easier that way." Nathan nodded. "The princess is in the medical bay. She doesn't know about you, about what you are. She will soon enough." Evan's smile did not change, but something shifted in his gray eyes. Something cold moved behind them, vast and ancient and patient. "I will try to be gentle with the explanation. Humans have learned to be gentle, have we not?" He left the cargo bay. Lisa and Danny watched him go. "I've served on this ship for 2 years," Danny said quietly, "and that man still terrifies me more than anything else in the galaxy." Lisa said nothing. She was thinking about the look in Evan's eyes, the way the temperature in the room had seemed to drop when he spoke. The way her instincts had screamed at her to run, even though he had done nothing threatening. Somewhere deep in the ship, Princess Kalith Voron was about to learn the humans were not the soft, weak creatures she believed them to be. She was about to learn why humanity had hidden for so long. And she was about to understand that there were things in the universe far more frightening than the Varaxis. Things that wore human faces and chose to be kind. Princess Kalith was arguing with one of her guards when the door to the medical bay opened. She turned, ready to continue her complaints about human hospitality, and then she stopped. A man walked in. He was completely ordinary. There was nothing special about his face, his clothes, his posture. He moved like any other human, slow and soft and weak. But every instinct in Kalith's body suddenly screamed at her to run. She did not understand the reaction. This human was smaller than her guards. He carried no weapons. He smiled pleasantly, like a merchant greeting a customer. There was nothing threatening about him. And yet her heart was racing. Her hands were shaking. Some ancient part of her brain, buried deep beneath thousands of years of civilization, was telling her that she was standing in front of a predator. The kind of predator that ate things like the Varaxis for breakfast. "Good evening," the man said. His voice was soft and kind. "My name is Evan. I understand you've had a difficult journey." Kaleth's guards raised their weapons. They felt it too, she realized. That primal terror. That desperate need to fight or flee. "What are you?" Kaleth whispered. Evan tilted his head slightly. "That is a complicated question. Perhaps Commander Cole should explain. He does it better than I do." Nathan stepped into the medical bay behind Evan. He looked tired, Kaleth noticed. Tired and sad, like a man about to share a secret he had kept for too long. "Lower your weapons," Kaleth ordered her guards. They hesitated. "Now." The guards obeyed, though their hands still trembled. Nathan pulled up a chair and sat down. Evan remained standing, his gray eyes watching everything with patient calm. "What I'm about to tell you," Nathan began, "is not known to any species outside of humanity. We have kept this secret for centuries. We have hidden ourselves, made ourselves appear weak and primitive, because the universe was not ready for the truth." "What truth?" Kaleth demanded. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak. "Humans did not evolve alone on Earth. Something else was there with us. Something that lived in the shadows, in the spaces between our thoughts. It shaped us, molded us, made us into something different from every other species in the galaxy." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Every myth we ever created, Princess, every nightmare, every monster that haunted our dreams and made children afraid of the dark. They were not imagination. They were memories, warnings passed down through countless generations." Kaleth's violet eyes widened. "Warnings of what?" "Of what we used to be." Nathan looked at Evan. "Of what some of us still are." The room felt colder. Kaleth realized she was holding her breath. "Other species evolved by conquering their environments," Nathan continued. "Eutherians became strong by fighting, by winning, by dominating. But humans evolved differently. We survived not by being the strongest predators on our world, but by surviving something far worse than any predator. We survived ourselves," Evan said softly. The princess stared at him. His smile had not changed. His posture had not shifted, but something in his eyes was different now. Something ancient looked back at her, something that had existed before her empire, before her species, before the stars themselves. "The Varaxis feed on fear," Nathan said. "They are predators of the psyche, hunters of the soul. They have destroyed civilizations because they are the ultimate nightmare." He stood up, facing Kaleth directly. "But Princess, the Varaxis are not the only things that hunt in the dark. They are not the oldest. And they are certainly not the most dangerous." He gestured toward Evan. "He is what humans were before we chose to be kind, before we locked away our true nature, before we decided that the universe deserved mercy instead of terror." Kaleth found her voice, though it came out as a whisper. "And what exactly was that nature?" Evan spoke then, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am what hides under beds, Princess. I am what lurks in closets and crawls through shadows. I am the thing that makes brave warriors wake up screaming in the night. I am the memory of extinction, the echo of oblivion, the hunger that existed before hunger had a name." He smiled, and for just a moment, Kaleth saw something behind that smile. Something vast and dark and endlessly patient. I am what the Varaxis would be if they ever grew up. The princess could not move, could not look away from those gray eyes that now seemed to contain entire universes of darkness. We chose to be different, Nathan said, his voice gentle. Thousands of years ago, humanity made a decision. We would not be monsters. We would not spread fear across the stars. We would be kind and soft and weak, because we believed that was better, because we wanted to be better. He put a hand on Evan's shoulder. The gesture was casual, friendly, as if he were touching a normal human being. But we never forgot what we could become. And when something threatens the people we have chosen to protect, when something like the Varaxis comes hunting, we remember that kindness is a choice. And we remember that we have other choices available. Kalith finally found her voice. The Varaxis have destroyed hundreds of civilizations. 50 of them are coming for us right now. And you expect me to believe that one human can stop them? Evan's smile widened slightly. 53, actually. I can feel them approaching. He turned toward the door. If you'll excuse me, Princess, I should go prepare. It would be rude to keep our guests waiting. He walked out of the medical bay. The temperature seemed to rise the moment he left. Kalith looked at Nathan. What is he going to do? Nathan's expression was unreadable. What he was made to do, Princess. What we all hope we never have to do. He paused at the door. I suggest you stay here. What comes next is not something anyone should have to watch. Then he was gone, leaving Kalith alone with her guards and her thoughts, and a growing understanding that everything she had ever believed about humans was completely, terrifyingly wrong. The Varaxis came at midnight. They did not approach like normal ships. They did not appear on sensors until they were already inside the hull. One moment the corridors of the Starward Hope were empty. The next moment they were filled with shadows that moved and writhed and hungered. The first Therian guard died before he could even scream. The shadow simply passed through him, and he crumbled to the ground, his face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. Whatever the Varaxis had shown him in that final moment, it had been too much for his mind to bear. Princess Kalith drew her ceremonial blade. It was a beautiful weapon, passed down through 15 generations of her family. It had killed enemies on a dozen worlds. Against the Varaxis, it might as well have been a child's toy. Stay behind me, she ordered her remaining guards, though she knew it was pointless. They were all going to die. The only question was how long they could delay the inevitable. The shadows gathered at the entrance to the medical bay. She could see faces in the darkness now. Thousands of faces, twisted with hunger, their mouths open in silent screams. Eyes that burned with cold fire. Teeth that existed in too many dimensions at once. This was how civilizations ended. This was what the Varaxis brought to every world they visited. Fear so pure, so absolute, that entire species simply gave up and died. Kalith raised her blade. She would not give up. She was Therian, she was royalty, she would die fighting. And then Evan walked past her. He moved calmly, casually, like he was taking a stroll through a garden. He stopped a few feet from the gathered shadows and looked at them with mild interest. Good evening, he said politely. I believe you're looking for the princess. The Varaxis responded, not with words exactly, but with something worse. Images flooded into Kalith's mind. Dying worlds, burning cities, children screaming as their parents dissolved into nothing. 1,000 years of terror and suffering compressed into a single psychic assault. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. Her guards collapsed beside her, weeping and trembling. Even the bravest Therian warrior could not withstand the full attention of the Varaxis. But Evan just stood there, unmoved. "That's very impressive," he said. "You've clearly practiced, but I'm afraid you're wasting your time." He smiled, and then he stopped pretending. Caliph would later try to describe what she saw. She would fail. Some things cannot be put into words. Some things exist beyond language, beyond comprehension, beyond the ability of any mortal mind to process. But she remembered pieces. She remembered the temperature dropping so fast that frost formed on her armor. She remembered the lights flickering, dying, coming back in colors that should not exist. She remembered the shadows of the Varaxis, those ancient hunters who had destroyed hundreds of civilizations, beginning to scream. Not attack, scream. She remembered Evan, still standing in the same spot, still wearing that gentle smile, but something had changed about him. The space around him seemed wrong, bent, folded in on itself. Looking at him was like looking at a hole in reality, a window into something that existed before existence itself. The Varaxis tried to flee. For the first time in their eternal existence, they knew what it was like to be prey. They clawed at the walls of reality, desperate to escape back to their dimension, to the safety of the spaces between spaces. But Evan followed them. He did not move. He did not chase. He simply reached out with something that was not a hand, into somewhere that was not a place, and he pulled. One by one, the Varaxis were dragged back into reality, and one by one, they were unmade. Caliph watched through tear-filled eyes as 53 ancient predators, beings that had ended civilizations for millennia, were erased from existence. Not killed, not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been, as if the universe itself had simply forgotten they existed. The whole thing took less than 4 minutes. When it was over, Evan stood alone in the corridor. The shadows were gone, the cold was fading, the lights had returned to normal. He turned to face Caliph. His smile was sad now, tired, as if what he had done had cost him something precious. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. "We try very hard not to be this anymore." Caliph could not speak, could not move, could barely breathe. Nathan appeared in the doorway, stepping over the frozen spots on the floor where the Varaxis had briefly touched reality. He looked at Evan with something like sympathy. "It's done?" he asked. "It's done." Evan's voice was barely a whisper. "They won't be hunting anyone else, ever." He walked past Nathan, past the stunned Therian guards, past the princess who was still kneeling on the floor with tears streaming down her face. He walked back toward the cargo bay, back toward his cryogenic pod, back to the sleep that kept him from being what he truly was. Nathan helped Caliph to her feet. Her hands were still shaking. Her whole body was still shaking. "What is he?" she managed to ask. Nathan considered the question for a long moment. "He's human," he said finally. "Just human. The same as me, the same as my crew, the same as every person you've ever dismissed as soft and weak. The only difference is that he remembers what we used to be, and sometimes, when there's no other choice, he becomes it again." Caliph looked down the corridor where Evan had disappeared. "How do you live with something like that on your ship?" Nathan smiled, and there was something ancient in that smile too. Something that reminded her, just for a moment, of Evan's gray eyes. "We live with him because he chose to be good, princess. Because he could destroy galaxies, and instead he sleeps in a pod, and reads books and tries to be kind." Nathan turned to help the wounded guards. "That's what makes him human. Not the power, the choice." Caliph stood alone in the corridor for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to process what she had witnessed. The Varaxis were gone. 53 ancient horrors, erased in 4 minutes by a man who apologized afterward. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, that man was going back to sleep, choosing once again to be gentle, choosing once again to be weak, choosing to be human. 3 days had passed since the Varaxis died. Princess Caliph spent most of that time in the observation deck, staring at the stars. She barely ate, she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Evan smile. She saw the shadows screaming. She saw the face of Oblivion wearing human skin. The starward Hope was traveling at full speed toward Therian space. In 2 more days she would be home. She would see her father again, her sisters, the palace where she had grown up believing that the Therian Empire was the greatest power in the universe. She did not know what she would tell them. Nathan found her in the observation deck on the evening of the 3rd day. He carried 2 cups of something warm and steaming. Coffee, the humans called it. A simple drink, bitter and strong. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the seat beside her. She nodded. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars drift past. The universe looked the same as it always had. Vast, cold, indifferent. But Kaylit saw it differently now. She understood for the first time that the darkness between the stars was not empty. Things lived in that darkness. Things hunted in it. And some of those things wore human faces. "My empire has conquered 300 worlds," she said finally. "We have the largest fleet in the known galaxy. Our warriors are feared across 1,000 star systems. We believed ourselves supreme, unstoppable." She turned to look at Nathan. His face was calm, patient, like it always was. "How many beings like him do you have?" Nathan considered the question. He took a sip of his coffee. "Enough," he said. "Enough for what?" "Enough to protect ourselves. Enough to make sure that if anyone ever comes for us, truly comes for us, they will regret it." He paused. "Not enough that we've forgotten what it costs." Caliph set down her cup. "Then why haven't you conquered the galaxy? Why hide? Why pretend to be weak and primitive when you could rule everything?" Nathan smiled. It was a tired smile, the smile of a man who had answered this question many times before. "Because we remember what we were," he said. "And we decided we didn't want to be that anymore." He leaned back in his chair, staring at the stars. "Every generation, Princess, we make the same choice. We choose kindness over cruelty. We choose mercy over destruction. We choose to be the soft, weak creatures you dismissed when we first met." He glanced at her. "But choice requires options. If you can only do one thing, then doing that thing is not a choice. It's just existence." "So you keep beings like Evan around," Kaylit said slowly, "to remind yourselves that you have other options, and to use those options when something threatens the people we've decided to protect." Nathan finished his coffee. "The Varaxis made a mistake. They saw a small human ship and assumed we were prey. They did not understand that humans are never truly prey. We just choose not to be predators." Caliph absorbed this. A species that could rule through terror, that could dominate through sheer existential dread, that could make the Varaxis look like children playing at being scary. And instead, they chose peace. They chose mercy. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we take you home. Your father will want to know his daughter is safe. He'll probably want to know what happened to the Varaxis too. And what will you tell him about humanity?" Nathan stood up, stretching his shoulders. "That's not my story to tell, Princess. It's yours." He started to walk away, then paused at the door. "But if your father is smart, he'll make sure no one else comes looking for us. We're not interested in war. We never have been. We just want to live our lives, explore the stars, and try to be better than we used to be." His eyes met hers. "But if someone forces our hand, if someone makes us choose between being kind and being safe, we will always choose safe. And the universe will remember why they should have left us alone." He left her then, alone with her thoughts and the infinite darkness of space. Caliph sat for a long time, watching the stars. Somewhere behind her, she could hear the human crew going about their business. They were laughing, playing games, sharing meals, living their ordinary, simple, impossibly dangerous lives. She thought about Evan, sleeping in his cryogenic pod, choosing to dream instead of destroy, choosing to be gentle when he could be terrible. She thought about Nathan, commanding his small ship through hostile space, saving strangers because it was the right thing to do. She thought about Claire, the medical officer, treating Fyrian wounds with careful hands, about Danny, keeping the engines running, about Lisa, standing watch through the long nights. Ordinary humans, soft humans, weak humans, humans who carried Oblivion itself in their cargo bay and chose every single day not to use it. When the Starward Hope finally reached Fyrian space, Princess Kalith Voron walked off the ship a different person than the one who had walked on. Her father's advisors would ask her about the Viraxis. They would want to know how she survived. They would demand answers, strategies, weapons. She would tell them the truth. She would tell them that humanity was not what they appeared to be. That beneath the soft skin and gentle smiles, something ancient and terrible waited. Something that had chosen to be kind. And she would tell them, in no uncertain terms, that the Thyrian Empire should never, ever give humanity a reason to choose otherwise. As she walked through the palace gates, she looked back one last time at the human ship disappearing into the stars. Nathan Cole stood at the observation window, watching her go. He raised his hand in a simple wave. Kalith waved back. Then she turned and walked into the palace, carrying with her the knowledge that would change the galaxy forever. The knowledge that monsters could choose to be kind. The knowledge that weakness could be strength. The knowledge that humanity, for all their soft bodies and gentle hearts, was the most dangerous species the universe had ever seen. Not because of what they could do, but because of what they chose not to do.